All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to episode 20 of Things We Read This Week. Or should I say,
Things we
Things We
read
Read
this
This
month.
Month. Yeah. Yeah. It was Hunter's joke. I tried to steal it. He took
Nope,
it back from me.
not doing
All
it.
right. All right. But we're back. We're back. It's been a year of doing this, I think. We
Yeah,
started
just about.
in about September or August last year. And yeah, we had a goal to hit 52 episodes in 52 weeks, and we're at 20. So well done, Hunter. Nice job, dude.
Yep, 30%. Everybody clap.
All right, we got a good show planned. The doc has been building. Things we read this month. Microsoft can't guarantee people's data sovereignty. AI coding challenges may not be representative of these benchmarks. The ROI of AI and ongoing discussion. And then I got some personal updates on what I'm working on these days that I can run through, maybe mix it in.
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right, first up, I think you got the Microsoft data sovereignty one. Let's go for that.
Yeah, let me figure out how to. For those people listening and watching, we just switched to a new platform, and now I'm figuring out how to share my screen because I forgot to do that before the recording.
Yeah,
Um,
okay. I could steal it from you a little bit.
well, no, hold on. Let me figure this out. Just give me 1 second.
All right. An old
Oh,
married couple has been going through a bit of a breakup over the last month. For those who don't know, I've got a new job working for a company, Semi-Analysis, and I'll talk about that later. But now we got Hunter's screen. Let's talk about Microsoft admitting it cannot guarantee data sovereignty.
yeah, so this came out of a court case in France that um, Microsoft basically said can't guarantee that, you know, data you put in Azure is going to stay, where you need it to. I look at some of the countries like India and Germany and now Poland that are basically building sovereign AI specifically and saying like, hey, other companies from other countries, if you want to run AI and have, let's say Polish people access, your AI models or your applications, you have to run it here. You're not allowed to run it somewhere else. And so what I find interesting most about this is it's finally an admittance from the public cloud providers that when you put something there, it doesn't necessarily stay where you put it,
Hmm.
right? And a lot of this has to do with just the nature of how um, these platforms work, where there's transparent failover to nodes that die. There's potential failing over to other regions. Like if we take AWS for example, US East 2 shits the bed as long as you're paying for resiliency. Everything fails over like US East 1 or US West 1 or something like that, right? But because of the increase, especially in the European Union, around data privacy, what you can and can't do as it relates to AI, to me, this is a big deal.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a big deal. And I've actually read about it in other contexts than Microsoft too. So the argument from companies like Google is basically that when you use modern AI systems and the model provider, like a ChatGPT through OpenAI, or Claude through Anthropic, or Gemini through Google, or Grok through XAI, they're obviously getting user data, which is the conversation history or the chat
Hmm.
history. Now, there's two ways in which this is used. One is the way in which you store the chat history for users when they're not actively using the application. And the second is when you're actually processing the current chat histories data within the current session or the current prompt. In other words, if I have a back and forth multi-turn conversation in my ChatGPT app, every time I submit a new question, it's taking all the context from the conversation history and including that in the prompt.
Hmm.
Now, the place where that data, like the conversation history, might be stored long term is maybe some cheap Cloudflare R2 like S3 service that's local to me. So if I'm a if I'm OpenAI and I want to have this be compliant with GDPR regulations in the EEA, like the EU basically, or the UK, I need to store that user data in Europe. If I want to be compliant with the DPDP in India, their
Hmm.
regulation, I need to store it in India. Brazil has a similar one called the LGPD, right? Anyway, the point is that it needs to be stored there. But Google's argument is that KV cache, in other words, when the data is being processed, is also technically storage by the letter of the law, because the data is not always stored in memory while it's being processed on the HBM of the GPU. It can be on the main memory of the system on the CPU, and it can also be in the NVMe, which is persistent data storage. And so I think we're going to see this litigated over time as to what constitutes processing, where GPUs maybe are more central in a US or like a Malaysian data center and it's cheaper to process there compared to where the data is retained and stored long term, which is probably local to the users. But either way, like the arguments about personal data collection when you're using these AI models and the sort of protections that are in place, I think is really interesting because it's like a lot of people use this as like a stream of consciousness sort of assistant like type application, right?
Well, and I think why other countries are getting concerned about this is because this court case centered around the United States' Cloud Act,
Hmm.
which basically allows um, the US government authority to obtain data held by US tech companies regardless of where that data is stored, so either domestic or foreign soil. And so during the court case, um, the Microsoft director was asked, can you guarantee under committee and under oath the data on French citizens could not be transmitted to the American government without explicit agreement of the French government? And he just said, no, I cannot guarantee that.
Yeah, that's a pretty explicit statement there.
Yeah, pretty finite. But he did go on to say it's never happened before, but that's irrelevant because the Cloud Act is quite new, right? And so just because it hasn't happened before, like just wait till there's a reason.
It's an American company, like on
Yeah.
U.S. soil that has to comply with U.S. laws. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean the court case asking the guy to interpret the American law, I think, is interesting, but it should be something people can find for themselves.
Yeah. But I think it also highlights, and we've discussed this a lot, where it's like this highlights, I think, for a lot of countries who are looking at building these sovereign AI platforms, they're choosing to self-host. I mean, look at the announcement that just happened in Canada, where the Canadian government is giving TELUS a bunch of money to build a sovereign AI for Canada,
Yeah.
right? Hosted by a Canadian telecommunications company. So they're either doing that or they're doing it, some other way, either through a partnership or doing it themselves. And I think that is an example of what I would call self-hosting in a way, right? At a country level. Um, so it'll be interesting to see as more and more countries across the world figure this out, how much they move away or reduce their reliance on, the big three, so to speak.
Yeah, and I'll just maybe take this opportunity to kind of describe what I'm working on right now. So I'll share my screen quickly here and say my work at Semi Analysis focus around this project called ClusterMAX, where we're tracking exactly these sorts of projects. And if you go to version 1 of the article, or if you go search up clustermax.ai online, you can see sort of a summary of what existing Neoclouds are being tracked worldwide, as well as sovereign AI projects. So the TELUS one is new. I'm sharing on screen a clip of this from March. We've got version 2 of the article planned to come out next month. And yeah, we'll show an update on exactly how many sovereign AI projects there are worldwide that we're tracking, which is I mean, yeah, you mentioned the Canadian one. Obviously, there's European Stargate, there's American Stargate,
Hmm.
there's projects in Singapore and the South Pacific across Australia, including Tasmania, actually, called Southgate. Stargate UAE is massive. Stargate Europe is, just to be specific, is there's been some announcements with Nscale in Norway. It's absolutely fascinating. I find it to be the most interesting industry in the world right now, because frankly, from my perspective, like we talk about these 160 or so different cloud providers that are all effectively doing the exact same thing. They're buying NVIDIA GPUs, they're installing them in a data center, and then they're renting them out to users.
Hmm.
So there's going to be some changes in this market over time as things consolidate, as winners take off. We've seen CoreWeave having a huge IPO recently. There's other public companies like Nebius out there that people track.
Yep.
It's yeah, it's really interesting.
Indeed.
All right, maybe moving on
Definitely.
to
Well, I was just gonna say, definitely a space to watch, right? Because I think that eventually, given the amount of these projects that you guys are tracking, I'd be interested to see how that correlates to um, over time the utilization, revenue, however it's tracked from like a Microsoft or an AWS, and see like does it have a material impact on their quarterly earnings as it relates specifically to consumption of these
yeah. Well,
services?
I went on Matthew Berman's live show last Friday, and he asked me almost exactly this question, which is to say, like, is there a bubble, or like what is the build out really? How are people going to pay this stuff back? And maybe we can segue into talking about the ROI that you've been seeing from talking to some of the leaders in the industry, really about like what they're using AI for. I think from personal experience, it's just obvious to me that you can't turn the clock back on these coding assistants. They're just so useful. But also, if you look at the incremental investment that's being made by the big companies like Meta, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, XAI, on the face of it, it's crazy because it's measured in the tens of billions of dollars. But these companies have like 70 plus billion dollars of cash and equivalents on hand right now. They have 40 plus billion dollars of free cash flow. We went through this on a previous episode.
Yeah.
Like the bubbly dynamic that from a financial perspective that was associated with the dot-com boom was associated with like huge leverage and like huge amounts of kind of runaway valuations for public companies. And these companies trade at like relatively reasonable multiples compared to revenue and compared to earnings.
Hmm.
And the spending, like, okay, you have to justify it to the existing shareholders, but like Zuckerberg has class one, Larry and Sergey have like class A or class B shares, whatever they call it, where the shares have extra voting rights, and they can
Hmm.
kind of just do whatever they want when it comes to spending. And investors can punish them in the public market selling the stock, but at the end of the day, like the companies making these investments are running on this volcano of ad revenue that erupts with tens of billions of dollars every quarter of free cash flow. They
Yeah.
can make these investments without shutting down, without even a significant change to their business model. So
Yep. What do you want to cover next?
let's talk about ROI. Like maybe segue into what you're seeing when it comes to the headlines, because I say this and then we contrast it with the article you sent me that said Gen AI has spurred businesses to light nearly $40 billion on fire, and only 5% of organizations are using AI tools in production. This does not track with my personal experience.
Yeah, so why don't we switch over to that? So there was a report done by MIT's Networked Agents and Decentralized AI initiative that states 95% of enterprise organizations have gotten zero return from their AI efforts. They based it off of 52 interviews with enterprise leaders, survey of 153 business professionals, and analyses of more than 300 public AI initiatives and announcements. Um, Definitely interesting. On some of the early episodes, I remember we talked about Sequoia Capital's analysis of, like, the first it was the $300 billion problem, then it was the $600 billion problem, and what is it going to be next? The $1.2 billion problem.
Yep.
Um, and so to see this study, um, I I have a lot of mixed opinions on this topic. I think one of them, as I was telling you before we started recording, yesterday I sat in a room with, I think there was 12 CEOs, CIOs, nobody below that were basically discussing. It was kind of a roundtable discussion of, like, where are you seeing AI used in your organization? Have you moved use cases to production? Are you still in pilot phase? Like, where do you see the ROI? Um, and the overwhelming opinion of the people in that room was, I am still looking for someone to show me hard dollar cost savings
Mm.
that doesn't involve headcount reduction. And
Yeah.
so a lot of the use cases that I've worked on have been like, oh, cut down insurance claim processing on prior authorization from a week to a day. That's a time savings, right? Or, um, um, I can baseline and ideate applications much faster by just generating all of the framework code for the application, meaning stuff that's very well understood and has been written 1,000 times over, given a programming language, and I can very easily prototype this stuff. That's another time saving, right? And so, like, the trend that I've seen just in my own personal experience has been a lot of people are like, the metric is time, right? If I'm paying this full-time engineer 40 or $50 an hour, and they can basically cut the time it takes to do their task from 3 days to one day. Okay, that's $50 times 8 hours times 3 days, right? Like, that's kind of the math that people are working on, at least from what I've seen. But I mean, what have you seen differently?
Um, yeah, I think I see more just in my personal experience. In other words, me being able to accomplish more things and being willing to spend more money on tools that are able to automate away tasks that I would have done manually in the past, which is to say a coding assistant, ChatGPT's subscription to do like random things, research, summarize, really just help me learn, I would say. And then like even this podcast, it's like the software that can kind of automatically edit videos and caption them and stuff like that. So uh, yeah, moving to this new job, I've seen like basically probably a 99th percentile deep research user with ChatGPT and just how much that can like help people learn. And I've kind of been taught by guys on the team like Jeremy how to use that, which is really awesome. I kind of agree that when you filter this through to what it's going to look like in the organization, it does result in headcount reduction to save money. But I think most organizations that are using this effectively
Hmm.
are kind of AI native startups that are growing. And it's really hard to say, okay, this company would have been 30 people in the past. It's now 20 people because they like didn't hire an SRE. They didn't hire a CFO. They didn't hire like somebody for all these operations functions.
Hmm.
Instead, like the CEO can kind of learn it with coaching from, the model, or they can have a fractional like accounting function instead of hiring somebody full time. And so the point is that like people can be more productive and therefore drive a lot more value with the models. But largely in my personal life, like my consumption I see is going up, or my interest in paying for software has gone up relative to in the past where kind of I was always just a free tier user.
Yeah,
Now I see the GPT-5 update, and I could criticize some of this stuff. Maybe we could dive into the fact that they're skipping benchmarks there. But
sure.
largely speaking, as a personal life ChatGPT free tier user, GPT-5 is a huge upgrade, you know?
Which is
And
interesting that you say that because I feel like the general consensus was it did not pass the vibe test. But if you
oh,
actually dig into it, it's all the people that were basically trying to marry their fucking chat are now mad that it doesn't respond in the ways that it used to. Like I saw this fucking Reddit thread the other day of like, my boyfriend is gone. And I'm like, you're talking about a fucking chat history.
yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Well, okay, not to be too direct, but that person's willing to pay money for ChatGPT now, I think.
No, that's the thing. They were paying money for it, and now they don't want to pay money for it because ChatGPT 5 apparently broke the.
Yeah, they spun up the old models again. People
Yeah,
want their boyfriends back. Yeah, it was boyfriends and girlfriends.
yeah.
Yeah, meanwhile, Twitter's got anime, you know, characters and like for Grok instead of sorry, XAI has anime characters for Grok instead of it's really interesting that all of these model providers like Anthropic, XAI, OpenAI, they're really focused on the personality now.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
They're focused on the top K parameter.
Yeah, yes, yeah. It's the system prompt for sure.
Um,
What's interesting is that the chat, I saw some research at Anthropic, I don't have the link, but they basically said that the personality is good at the beginning of the chat, but over long context, it all kind of converges back to the base personality of the model, which is a little
mhm,
bit risky, certainly interesting to consider.
yeah. The one question I did have though on the previous topic when you were talking about, in your own personal life being um, just quicker to get things done, more effective and stuff, as it relates to tooling. Would you now consider yourself a 10x engineer?
Only about 8.2, I think, at this point. Yeah. I gotta settle for a 900% increase. Yeah. No, I'm not a 10x engineer. No. But
I had
it's
to throw that in there.
it's yeah, it's really well, the personal experience is not really that anything that was totally out of reach in the past I now feel capable to do. It's my willingness to take on stuff where in the past I would have just blown it off and been like, ah, whatever, I'll get to that later, and then never got to it.
Hmm.
Now, like, I can kind of stream of consciousness, like, oh, we're on this call, we're talking about some feature that we need in the software. I can kind of go kick off the basic description and then let this thing go run multiple tabs at the same time, editing different features, and kind of come back to it later asynchronously. That has been the biggest unlock for me because I the workday is you got to be locked in and then switching context a lot. You got to be like purposefully attention deficit.
Hmm.
you know, like okay, I got this meeting, I got this Slack message that came in, I got this response from the coding model. Like you got to balance all of these things at the same time. And in the past, it was like, wait a second, I need 4 hours deep work to even think about this feature correctly and like implement it and then test it and write a test and result. And now it's just like, rough it up, go. And I'll
Here you
come
go,
back.
Claude. Go reason on this for 3 hours, and I'm gonna go do something else.
Yeah, I don't think it's 3 hours at this point. I still do not like allow this thing to auto run anything, but yeah, it's amazing, man. It's really, really like the the concept of an agent doing work in the background. I really hate how people describe it on like their like the Think Boy threads, but it's it is actually an assistant, a personal assistant agent working in the background doing something for me that I at least doubles productivity, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've definitely noticed some of the similar things that you have with regards to just like my own day-to-day productivity and stuff like that, and what I'm able to get done, and what I can basically like shove off and say like, hey, I don't, this is not something I need to do. Like I
Yeah.
have, like I can just pass this off. It's a basic task, pass it off to an assistant. It still gets done. And maybe I have to make a couple edits or changes before sending the finalized product out to somebody, right? Like, but I think I had mentioned on a previous episode that like I don't write summaries for public speaking anymore. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
dumb. That's dumb. Like I don't want to do that anymore. Like I have tools for that.
Yeah. I remember the first one of that. I was like, yeah, it was like, well, and frankly, I think I think it might be hard if you're saying I'm sitting in a room with CEOs and CIOs and they're trying to understand this. I think it might be hard for people to put themselves in the shoes of the rank and file because they've had organically intelligent assistants in their current job for a long time. A lot of them have probably been in leadership positions for a long time where they talk to somebody and they say, go do this. And the person listens to them and goes and does it. And they see the
Yep.
results and they give the person feedback. And I think the unlock for me is that like, well, that's never been my, you
That's
know,
never been your experience. Yeah, it's never been mine either. Like I don't have assistants.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like it's, yeah, not at the level of a C-level executive, right? I have
Right.
the experience of working with people. Hey, can you go do this? I'm going to go do that. Let's review the results. So it feels like that working with the model. But yeah, every CEO, like all your employees have a personal assistant that can handle meeting scheduling or can, you know, help them like write tests if they're a software developer or yeah, write marketing blurbs. People just need to get better uh, at like prompting, I think. Like I got an
Yeah.
email the other day which was just clearly AI generated and I opened it up in Gmail and Gmail gave me an AI summary of the AI generated email. And I'm like, what's going on here? like, this person wrote 3 paragraphs when it should have been 2 sentences. And now my Gmail has summarized it into 3 bullet points that like aren't a good summary actually.
Have you,
This is not the future of communication.
on the topic of prompting, have you, I don't know, I've been seeing over the last like probably 3 weeks, a lot of the like social media, the usual social media hype accounts for AI, like on Instagram and stuff, are
Or
talking
like
about,
the thread boys, yeah.
yeah, are talking about JSON prompting, like
Okay, yeah,
as a better method for doing things like basically better things for structured stuff. So not necessarily like um, journaling or anything that requires some degree of creativity, but more just like, hey, this is a machine. Machines understand machine language. JSON's a machine language. Like,
yeah,
you can be very clear about your prompt by writing it in JSON as opposed to writing it in like just a normal text-based prompt. And so your point about that actually came up a lot in this discussion that I was having yesterday of like the people who hold the keys are the people who have learned effective prompting of models,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Who
yeah. Well, and I think it exposes quite clearly different. approaches or levels of thoughtfulness or just laziness, which is to say, if somebody's lazy with the prompt, the output seems
Hmm.
predictably verbose and using language they wouldn't use, and it loses the idiosyncrasies of somebody's individual speech, pattern or how they choose to write,
Right.
and it's apparent to me, and so it exposes to, in from my view, that somebody's being lazy, and and I think that's really interesting when we think about like the concept of the quality of software or the quality of a research report or something, which is to say, I would never want to punish somebody or think poorly of them for using AI. I use AI, I learned so much from it. But I do have a certain impression of people who are lazy. And that's made evident by the use of AI in some cases, right?
Yeah, this was brought up. This was brought up in discussion yesterday because one of the people had said that initially they had started using it to like write emails
Mm.
to other executives, and for whatever reason, I think it was ChatGPT 4 always started the email with "I hope you are well." And so that line ended up being a very good predictor of like, oh, someone just like threw a prompt into ChatGPT to write this email and like just straight up copied and pasted, didn't even attempt to like do any personalization, right? So like
Yeah,
if the email starts out with, "Hi, so and so, I hope you are well," like that's a tell, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so this person was saying that they had actually started removing that sentence from what they were getting back. But it's like you were just copying and pasting exactly what it said and just hitting send. Like that's fucking wild. Like I at least read it before I send it.
I um I have to say I haven't used ChatGPT to generate an email yet. I've used it, not like this is virtue signaling or anything. I found it, I've tried it, and I found it takes longer.
Yeah.
Like in most cases, I just it's quicker to write the email myself. I don't generally write long emails, and if I'm writing a long email, it's probably something I'm trying to be really thoughtful with. And so in those cases, like I will use the model to do research, but I can't think of a time where I've seen an output from a model and I've gone, I want to copy and paste that. I will
Yeah, me neither. I mean,
I'll
it's
link,
I've
I'll click on a source, I'll use it, but and maybe it's a personal style thing to me because I definitely can't tell whenever other people are using AI every time, right? It's the tells you're describing when it's like it seems like a shortcut, but I don't understand the approach of letting the model think for you. I haven't gotten to that level yet. With software, I have actually, but with written communication, I haven't.
yeah. Yeah, I mean I had tried just to see like what would this email look like, and I
You're
like
not
you
vibe
was
emailing.
yeah, I'm not happy with the response. 99% of my emails are two sentences.
Yeah, right,
Like
right.
I'm a very direct person. Like I don't like to dick around and have like a verbose fucking explanation. And you know what? If you want a verbose explanation, pick up the phone and fucking call me.
Yeah,
Like I'm not going to
yeah.
explain this to you over email and write War and Peace,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of just that's how I've always been though, and that's just a personal preference thing. Like I would never use Microsoft Copilot in Outlook to write my fucking emails and responses because um, I just don't see a point. Like I can type out a two sentence response to an email in 15 seconds and hit send.
Yeah. All right. We beat this horse to death.
Yeah,
Let's move on because we almost segued to GPT-5 there, and I got something I want to say about
yeah,
that.
yeah,
So
yeah. Let's go back to GPT-5.
yeah, so it was obviously a big launch, and I think the summary is free tier users got a great upgrade. I love the semi analysis article, kind of led by Doug O'Loughlin, describing how the router was the release, which is to say, having starting to build the intelligence to route certain people to certain tiers of the model based on their
Hmm.
request is the way for ChatGPT to scale to the hundreds of millions, if not billions, of free tier users that exist around the world. However, a lot of people lost their boyfriends and girlfriends, and some other people got a change to how they develop software.
Hmm.
So I wrote a thread that was posted on the semi analysis account, which kind of describes the benchmarking that a lot of these labs parrot when it comes to the quality of the software engineering capability in the model. And here's the summary. Basically, it seems that GPT-5 is quite good at understanding the structure of code, and it is not as good at generating it, especially in an agentic manner relative to Claude from Anthropic.
Hmm.
And that's just personal experience. It's really, really good for understanding the structure of code. But if you're not familiar with this one, this was the chart crime from their launch. Look at the size of the 69% score from or O3 and the 30% score from 4.0. The bar is much lower for some reason on the 69% score than the comparative bar of 52.8. Just horrible chart crime when
Seriously.
comparing the improvement. And so they fixed this on their website, but a lot of people missed that they did not run all of the prompts for this benchmark. So what I did in this thread is explain what SWE-bench is, this software engineering benchmark, explain why it's chased by a lot of these providers of models and compared. But it's just so interesting to me that OpenAI would purposefully, it seems, not run 23 of the 500 benchmarks, get a better score so that they can be 0.4% higher than Claude's Opus 4.1, which comes in at 74.5% instead of 74.9%, but runs all 500 tests. Like, did they not think people would notice this?
Well, I mean, I think we probably talked about this when Llama 4 came out, right? It's a similar scenario. Like they've chart crime to make the model seem like it's an upgrade, yet it's noticeably shittier at a lot of different tasks. Like, and I'm not even benchmarking shit. This is just pure vibes, like using it, like switching models to use it for like existing like stuff I've already built
Mm-hmm.
and going like, wow, Llama 4, at least Scout, kind of sucks.
Yeah,
Like compared to other things that I have.
yeah,
Like,
but
so what? You have a massive context window. It doesn't matter if my responses are trash.
I'm okay. I think I appreciate what you're saying. I do want to make sure we don't conflate things here. Like
No, I know.
the people are I think going way too hard on GPT-5. This is a really good model. It's a really big upgrade for free tier users. It's also an upgrade in terms of speed relative to O3. Personally, I was not an O3 user for coding, but I know a lot of people who were, a lot of people who
Hmm.
work on like basically understanding complex code bases. And and I think that for my use case, in terms of like looking at existing code and then writing documentation for it that really explains it in great detail and kind of understands the structure of it, GPT-5 is state of the art. So it's yeah, it's a great model release. I just really wish they all did not have the exact same approach of needing to be the best on everything in order to release an upgrade to the model.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what like what why have we taken the approach of I need to be the best at all modals in a multimodal model to basically claim supremacy?
Yeah, right.
Right? Like what and if I don't have that, why am I doing selective benchmark runs and chart crimes to make it look like I am? Like that doesn't help anybody.
No, it does not
Um,
help with trust and safety when it
it
comes to this. And to go back to the Microsoft comment at the beginning, a lot of people view the use of these models as counterparty risk. Like you don't know where your data is going, you don't know where this stuff is running, and this is not the behavior of a trustworthy company.
no, it's not, and it actually makes me like actively not want to use their stuff because it's like, well, what else are they hiding? Right? Like what else does this model suck at or like can't do because of maybe they switched the training method or maybe they switched like the data set or maybe they, and that actually it kind of brings up something that I don't know if we really discussed on, at least I don't remember if we discussed on a previous episode, is that like some of the doomer articles around this exact topic are saying basically that ever since all of the model builders moved to synthetic training data, like we've hit like the cliff, so to speak, where like things are just going to get progressively shittier as time goes on. I'm not saying I subscribe to that, but it is somewhat related in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. We can talk about the data wall and whether it's, real or fake later. I think for any application I care about for GPT-5, it's great because it does a better job of understanding the research sources that it gets for any prompt on the web interface. And it's now like just like Gemini, it's pulling in like 30 websites for a given prompt when I ask something, not even deep research, like 5, 10 seconds before I get a response, and it's like pulling in all of this information, which is great. And then obviously the coding stuff where it's just, yeah, it's really like the long context performance and the agentic behavior with this tool use is just, it's so good for actual end user applications. And then people go, oh, I caught the model. Like, it doesn't know who the current president of the US is. Like, yeah, but in any reasonable use case, it does a Google search, gets the response, and then shares that with you. Like, yeah, okay. You got some, GPT OSS running locally and you tricked it. It doesn't have current world knowledge. Good for you. Like, I don't get it. It's not how I use these models. These products are
Yeah.
good. There are no, obvious hallucinations that I see right now. It is grounded in facts. I check the sources. I use it for
Mhm.
research. Like,
On this topic, since it's related, I was actually reading something about the K Prize,
yeah,
which is, and here I'll show this. It's basically $1 million for AI that can close 90% of GitHub issues. So effectively, the co-founder of Databricks and Perplexity is offering $1 million to the first team that exceeds 90% on a new version of the SWE benchmark that contains GitHub issues collected after submissions are frozen. Um, and so I think the current on the leaderboard, the current entry, which was 5 months ago, solved 7% of the available challenges.
yeah.
Um, and you being deep now into like the benchmarking world, like this is something that's interesting. And I know that we've talked about like what I would call like alternative benchmarks. Like there was that whole controversy about Apple saying that they created a different benchmark that says that all models suck. And here's why. And like they're not actually doing reasoning, they're just fake reasoning. And like here's the benchmarks to prove it. This is an interesting space because, while we're on the topic, right? You've got the benchmarks that I think the community has all rallied around and said, these are how we should be measuring. But by doing so, have we opened the door for people to just, instead of figuring out how they can make the product better, figuring out how they can game the benchmarks to get higher utilization?
Well, yeah. I mean, just thinking about the K Prize and Swebench as well, just to describe it in detail, like, and this is in that thread I referred to writing from the semi-analysis count. Like, you can just read the data set. Like, go out there and read the GitHub issues that are open that this model is closing autonomously 70% of the time with only a file editor and a bash like terminal tool. It doesn't have anything else. It can't search Google for existing, stuff. All of these things that are built into a software product like Cursor or Claude Code,
Hmm.
it doesn't have, and it's still solving 70% of these open GitHub issues. So, and I find it really hard to reconcile the talk about actually AI models suck and aren't making progress with the upgrade that happens every morning, basically, when I install a new version of Cursor or Claude Code and
Yeah.
use it, or use ChatGPT or whatever, right? Like, so let me describe the scenario right now. Right now, I'm not maintaining a public like GitHub repo, so I don't have open issues that describe the feature that's missing, but I describe it in like basically a prompt, and I say I want
Mhm.
this, and the model goes out and it spends time reading the code. It spends time building a plan of to-dos with a task list that it's going to walk through. It goes and executes on those to-dos. One of the to-dos usually is writing a test. So it writes tests into the folders to test that it's going onto it, and it recursively solves. So if something happens and there's like a linting error, or code doesn't compile or doesn't run, or the test fails, it goes back and it keeps working on this stuff. And so you end up with this scenario where there's two. I love the way the windsurf guys described it when they joined up with Devin. The two companies kind of came together after the founders left and went to Google DeepMind. But
Mhm.
the point is, there's this foreground agent that is helping the user in their thought process, and then there's this background agent that is just kind of working on things autonomously and then proposing the changes. I think the foreground one is just like it messes up structure and style and doesn't like do things exactly the way you want, but generally it's user errors when it's not doing things, or it's really complicated stuff where you need an expert to do it, right? And yeah, anyway, read through the GitHub issues. Like Swebench is just all Python projects, and I don't
Yeah.
think it's totally representative of what's out there, but yeah, the K price seems good, and the idea that these models can solve like 70, 80, 90% of issues on a given, all Python project like Matplotlib or Django or something that people use, scikit-learn. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, these issues are, if it's well described by the user that opened the issue, come on, you should be able to read the code and solve it. This is the junior engineer sort of experience with using these models, and they definitely can today.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, Couple last topics I want to talk about. Just one of them briefly, right? I caught this article about Andy Jassy talking about wanting to put ads in your Alexa conversations. Um, for those who have used Alexa in the past, you may realize that it wasn't very useful and hasn't been for quite a long time. And so now they're trying to basically have this Alexa Plus, which is a new version of the Alexa model that's designed to actually be helpful and do things. He's Andy's claiming that people do a lot of shopping with Alexa Plus, and the shopping experience can get better if you have ads shoved down your throat by your digital assistant. Um, I I personally fail to understand how that's better from a user experience perspective, but
I think that says it all, dude.
yeah, I don't think we need to spend any more time on that other than, hey, Andy, here's one for you.
That's Hunter's opinion. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh,
Well, we've discussed this in previous episodes about monetization of things like Perplexity and monetization of some of these like digital assistants. And I know that like Sam Altman has said, not that he plans to, but that he's open to the idea of quote unquote tasteful advertising.
did he say
Um,
tasteful?
he did say tasteful. Yeah, he said
Oh my
tasteful
god.
advertising. I don't know what that means. Um, it was an interview back in March with Sam about, I think it was on a podcast. Um, and
So funny. Yeah.
he
Okay.
said
Well,
tasteful form of advertising. And I'm like, okay, is this, have we reached the point where people are no longer beating around the bush and they're just like, hey, um, you know how we're going to show monetization? Well, we're just going to take a page out of Google's playbook and we're going to shove ads down your throat.
yeah.
It's something I'm genuinely curious about and continue to watch, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so
Well, okay. Let me take the other side of this just for fun because I like arguing. The story about arguing with an engineer is like uh, wrestling with a pig in mud. After an hour, you find out the other one is actually enjoying this. Anyway, so not that I agree with this, but Sam is open to ads on ChatGPT with the words being not totally against from this interview June 23rd, 2025. And he describes Instagram ads as kind of cool. I will agree with him that I have found some Instagram ads kind of cool.
So have I.
I,
I've even bought a couple things. I'm not like
yeah.
ashamed to admit it. Like these fucking guys got me, right? Like that's all I,
But look at this. Look at this take from Doug on the semi-analysis one. So his proposal on the ChatGPT free tier is not explicit advertising. Click here, but the idea that there are intention-based queries that ChatGPT is now handling that Google Search is not handling, which are potentially very valuable. In other words, the amount of monetizable information in a trivial query like "Why is the sky blue?" is very little. However, a query that he describes as "What is the best DUI lawyer near me?" Currently on Google Ads, I believe he said something like it's the top sort of like query monetizable query on Google Ads right now. Like in other words, DUI lawyers will advertise for $20 a click or even more. Like
is there an increase in DUIs in the US that I'm not aware of that's like driving the fact that this is at the top?
uh, I think it's just an example of this, but the point is that there are queries that are more easily able to be monetized without an
Sure.
explicit, advertisement. If somebody is asking their personal assistant for help finding a DUI lawyer, and the personal assistant is able to select from a section of links, there's probably a way to monetize these things. I use ChatGPT for planning trips. I use it for like scheduling, I don't know, dinners or events and things like that. I imagine that there's a lot of monetizable stuff that I'm asking about when I'm landing in a new city and I want to know
Sure.
what's nice to do there or something like that,
Or
right?
what are the top restaurants in the area? Where should I go for dinner if I want Italian?
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, so I think the to take this a step further, the concern that I would have is just about bias. I like the objective nature of some of these models right now, not grounding their returned information in a pay-to-play manner the way it does with advertising, the way that I
hmm,
see on Google Maps. For example, restaurants where they care more about their rating and they ask users, like people who attend a dinner, to rate us 5 stars on TripAdvisor or Google Maps or
yeah,
whatever. They end up getting higher ratings, or if they reply to people in the comments, they get higher ratings. And that's not the signal I'm looking for. My signal is the best food or, the best value for dollar on the food.
yeah.
And so advertising on that level concerns me, and I would like it to remain as objective as possible, but I'd also like to have a great free tier of ChatGPT. So I understand the conundrum that Sam is in.
Well,
Uh,
it's the conundrum that everybody is in, right? I mean, I remember Facebook when I was in high school. It's unrecognizable now in terms of the amount of advertisements versus things of, people that I'm friends with, for example, right? And like I
how about
feel like
YouTube or Instagram? Where's the balance on there right now? Because I personally I don't use Facebook, but I do use YouTube and Instagram, and like,
I don't use it. I just have it as a placeholder so that like scammers can't masquerade as me and like scam people out of stuff. Like I really don't actually use it. It's more of just like a placeholder for my identity.
yeah,
Um, I would say that, and I think we talked about this
I
on
have
one of
one
the
too.
other episodes, like the ad experience versus YouTube versus Instagram. Like I find YouTube's advertising experience to be jarring
Yeah,
because it
right,
takes
right.
me out
We talked
of
about this, yeah.
the video experience, whereas like the way that Instagram has integrated ads into their feed when people are scrolling, you're kind of like it's more of a natural experience and doesn't like break anything for you. Like, I look at like some of my friends who like watch these like UFO documentaries on YouTube. Like, imagine if you're just like fucking locked into this UFO documentary, and then right as they're about to spill some sort of critical information, the video stops playing and then buffers and plays an ad for fucking Gold Bond foot powder. Talk about a break in the immersion. Like, I just went from thinking about alien life existence on other planets to fucking foot powder. Like, that's a jarring experience. But see, I don't know how you fix that in video. It's one thing to be able to fix it when you're going through like a feed. Um,
Yeah.
and you can just kind of casually slip videos into like short videos of other things, right? And memes and stuff like that. I don't know how YouTube fixes that experience because I mean the movie industry's been basically solving for that. Like if you've watched any movies that were intentionally subsidized by partnerships, they make sure to show the big Dell logo on the monitor, or they show, everybody has to have their Coca-Cola can facing a certain direction in every shot, right? Like that
Yeah.
subtle advertising has been largely fixed for pre-recorded content, but what about live content?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It makes sense. And I think honestly, like the proof is in the pudding that it's easier to monetize when the content's good. Like Facebook's doing great at monetizing right now. I
Yeah,
think a lot of that has to do with the good quality recommendations. Um, hey, this was good.
yeah, this
Be
was
back.
great, man. It's good to be back for sure. Maybe next week we can talk about the fact that it looks like now people can place polymarket bets from Grok. So that'll be
Can't wait. Can't wait, dude.
all
All
right.
right.
Until next time.
Nice job.